And so citizens are appropriately mobilized. That's a very good thing. Because so we've had the opportunity to sit down upstairs in my office is much smaller with some of the leaders that are here today. We did that. We asked people to come in about 2 weeks. We wanted a bigger venue, so that's what we're down here today. And we'll do more and more of these. We had.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're doing the different venues. We're doing so we can just get a wide possible. We are very, very pleased in these province. We had our stormy day, about 800 people. People were able to express themselves. We all learned a lot. Sheldon, David, and I. We got a sense of people's feelings. Very, very good. And we're going to replicate that. In fact, Saturday, we have at the Roundhouse a healthcare rally that we're going to, again, urge the retention of Obamacare. So we're engaged. Yeah.
Demand retention of Obamacare. Demand it.
We are going to, well, let me just start off by saying, part of what we have in our country is the system of checks and balance. And so one of the roles that we play in the course of district is check. So when did I start checking some of President Trump's actions, ideas, suggestions? Before he was inaugurated. Working with John McCain, we led an armed services committee hearing that had the major intelligence officers of the United States. Okay, there you go. Can you hear me now? Basically, refute the president. Because as you recall, back then, the Russian thing was just kind of embittered Clinton supporters, fake news, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because we had the press and the public and the forum, and we did it on a bipartisan basis, we were able to establish with high confidence, basically irrefutable, that the Russian government was involved in our election. They were hacking into the Democratic National Committee and other entities, that they had an elaborate disinformation campaign that was directed from the highest levels of the Russian government. Then, to keep pressure on, because you can't stop, this is constant effort. Sometimes it gets reported, sometimes you get a really snappy quote that gets replicated around, but the pressure has to be constant. We, along myself, Senator Schumer, Senator McCain, Senator Graham, demanded a joint committee to study Russian involvement in the election and Russian involvement going forward. Because of that, we were able, I think, to put enough effort on Senator McConnell that he told the Intelligence Committee to conduct the investigation. And we continue each and every day to ensure that that committee fulfills its responsibility to go where the facts take you, to do it in a way that we're able to establish to the American people what happened and prevent it from happening again. And that is a constant effort. So that was before the president was inaugurated. Also before the president was inaugurated, because we had heard the plan was to repeal Obamacare immediately. The delegation on our own coalition got together in Johnston. We had an open town hall. We had huge public participation. And that participation sent a message which now is resonating all across the country. Particularly, not just with Democrats, but with independents, Republicans, and others, saying, don't take this system away. This has helped tremendously. This has given, in Rhode Island, we've gone from 12% uninsured to about 4.5%. 100,000 people, you go on and on with the benefits. And in fact, we're one of 3 states where our average health care insurance costs have gone down because of local efforts. We've got to keep it up. We can make it better. So that was before he took over. Now he gets squared in, and we have to go ahead and deal with a whole series of issues. Legislation to repeal environmental law. We've opposed. Legislation to provide.
Thank you.
Legislation that would allow people with mental disabilities to get access to firearms, means a real cause. Then we get into a topic which of nominations. We have had literally a record number of votes where we have bipartisan basis, basically the no for most of us, opposed his nomination. As a result of our efforts, we had the first time in history where a vice president had to break a tie to go to Secretary of Education, and then the pressure that was built up forced the withdrawal of the Labor Secretary nominee. It's daily, constant effort like that. And again, we all did our share. Senator Whitehouse was on the floor. I was on the floor at 12:21 morning speaking. I was on the floor at 6:21 morning speaking because we have to keep this pressure constant. Some of it gets recorded, and some of it is just part of the process. But that's our job. And we're going to keep doing that job. Because every day there seems to be another attempt to undermine what I would say is sound policy that benefits the country and institute policy that not only doesn't help us, but in fact harms us. The Muslim ban came. We immediately opposed that. The courts were able to step in and stop it. And one of the reasons, there are many reasons, but one of the reasons is having traveled multiple times into combat zones, this does not help us in our efforts overseas to fight terrorism. One of the ironies of that ban was, is we were telling Iraqis they couldn't come to the United States. We have Iraqi pilots that are training in the United States so they can go back and be with us in the fight on our side, not the other side. And so the issue was not only it offended our principles, it just didn't make any sense in terms of our efforts to go after terrorists that are threatening other countries and threatening us. So this is a constant process, a constant effort that I try to do every day, and I will continue to do that. Now, the real reason we're here, though, is to get a sense of what we can do, what we should do, etc. And so I'm going to go ahead and please let us know who you are.
Sir, I have a microphone so I can have you.
Kyle has a microphone. Oh, by the way, we've got the press here, so, you know, this is open. And they're all going to gather. I promised, yeah, for real. I promised I wouldn't move, so they didn't have to move, but go ahead. Can we shout out, or do you want to borrow mine? You know, I know you. Go ahead, shout out.
Okay, thank you first of all, Senator, for meeting with us.
Yes, sir.
And I appreciate that. And I'm guessing, just looking around, and with respect, but I'm guessing just looking around that there are not too many recent immigrants here today. And I just want to encourage you in the future, obviously it's good to have this meeting, but in subsequent meetings, I'd like you to have some, perhaps in Central Falls in the evening, so that we get a wider representation of your constituents.
I agree.
Just a couple of quick things.
Yes, sir.
Senator Warner is sponsoring Senate Bill 291, and that would remove Steve Bannon from the National Security Council. I know you will be supporting that, but it's called the Strengthening Oversight of National 2017. I did notice, however, that there are 8 or 10 co-sponsors, but I would love to see you sign on as co-sponsor unless you're
I agree. I will see Senator Warner on Monday, and let me. Do you want to finish, or do you want me to comment on that particular issue right now?
Come on right away.
Let me comment on that right away. The National Security Council is in disarray, and it's not just because Steve Bannon's there, although that's the principal reason. The other reason is that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the highest ranking military officer in the country, used to be a permanent member of every meeting of the Principals Committee, and now he's only allowed to be there when the issue is they decide of importance. I think that's also wrong. So, in the context of the National Defense Act, as we go forward, we're also going to look at that too. So this is not just Bannon's presence, it's Joe Dunford's absence that's good.
I also would like you to tell the whole group at some point during today your views on Judge Gorsuch and his nomination. I know you would be generally opposed to him, but I also have heard from your office that you think in terms of giving the president the possibility of having his people in place, especially when it comes to the Supreme Court. I would just point out that Merrick Garland wasn't given that respect, and I think it is important for you to be very clear that we're not going to do everything possible to stop it.
Stand firm.
Let me talk to the conference. You hit the nail right on the head. Merrick Garland was not given what I think constitutionally would be appropriate, which would be at least a fair hearing. And we said it at the time. We all did, every Democrat. We demanded it, and it was not carried out. What we have to do, I think, is do what we said then, which is listen to Judge Gorsuch.
Why?
Wait, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen. When we go out and criticize people for doing something that we think is absolutely wrong, and then we come back and say, but we're going to do exactly what you did, I don't think it's the right approach. I think the right approach is not, you don't give deference to the president's appointment. What you do is you have to look carefully at the record of the individual. This is Supreme Court justice, and I've had the opportunity to vote for and against several of them, and I voted against ones that I don't believe in their judicial philosophy or their role on the court. But I think you have to be fair to our obligation, which they were not fair, to sit down, to review carefully what these individuals have written in terms of opinions, and also to give them the opportunity to respond to questions and then make a judgment. The other thing I think is important too is that our consideration of Judge Gorsuch has to be based on the same procedural principle of every nominee of President Obama, which is a 60-vote procedural threshold. We have to insist upon it, and we will insist upon it. So that is something we're going to do. And then, after I review, which I think is fair, the record, I'll make a decision and communicate it to the public. And again, I voted for judges. I voted against judges. I voted against Judge Roberts, Judge Alito. I have to check for the back. But I've been able to take votes against the presidential appointment and for presidential appointment. So there's no real deference to preference. You know what the deference is, in my view? To the Constitution.
And finally, I'd like you to take a deeper, more aggressive commitment to stopping the president's agenda. You don't appear to be as strong. And then you can have the floor. I'd like you to find moderate Republicans to jump ship You've been in the Senate a long time, you must have friends, and I want you to work doubly hard to get a few more than Susan Collins to jump ship. Secondly, and lastly, I would like you to take a page out of Senator Chris Murphy's notebook. He had 1,000 people show up at his town meeting a night or two ago. They gave him, as he walked in, a standing ovation. And if you look at what he's doing with regard to trying to respond to the Trump machine, he's doing a dramatically important service to us. And as people like him, and I hope you continue to fight in the way that he is currently fighting, I think you will see a swelling up.
Yes.
of
Yes.
people. Thank you very much. Because Mr. Trump has done a very good job of saying how to avoid autocracy. Thank you.
You don't have to be standing in the right now. Give me 2 minutes. Okay. Chris Murphy is a great senator. So anything he does, I'll look at it very closely. Okay. 2 is you're absolutely right. You know, if we're going to eventually move in the Senate, we're going to have to start getting Republicans like-minded. It's no coincidence that the 2 senators that broke with the party on the labor secretary were Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski, 2 of my closest associates on the Republican side, who I've worked with for the last 6 years very, very closely.
She could win as a Democrat and maybe.
I'll let the maniacs figure that out. That's the term. But the point I think too is here's where we are actively, as I said, when we started this effort to unmask the Russian participation in the election, it was John McCain and I who decided we had to do it. And, John was very adamant about this, too. He wasn't like, brought along. We were both shoulder to shoulder. That's how we're going to do it. And that's what I've been trying to do constantly, to build up this opposition based on principle to some of these policies. And we are going to try to make more and more progress. And the key ultimate will be getting moderate Republicans and others to join us, and we're going to try that effort. And that's what I do probably more, like a lot during the day.
Thank you.
I'll stop
do it not only behind the scenes, let us know you're doing that.
No, well, we will do that, but the other thing, we will do that. You're right.
And work fast.
Yeah. You've been chomping at the bit.
I'm Don Meyer, I'm from Clarence. Can you hear me?
It's not very good. Maybe just being loud.
All right, I'll be loud.
Okay.
This might have some relevance to Judge Gorsuch. Donald Trump has attacked the press as the enemy of the people. He's attacked the court system and said it would be the fault of the courts if anything happens. Merrick, he's attacked voters by promoting this blood scam that's been going on for some years in the Republican administration, and saying that there are millions of illegal votes in the recent elections. And he's making a direct attack on democracy himself. I hate to say it, the legally elected president. Maybe not morally, but legally. So, how are we going to preserve our democracy in view of this threat that we have never, I don't think, certainly not my life. Is there anything like this? How are we going to collaborate to save our democracy?
Well, first of all, and this I think is as powerful as you can get, is your daily conversations with other Rhode Islanders are actually critical. And making sure they're aware of that. And not just here in Rhode Island, but across the country. Because the most powerful, I think, instrument in American public policy is inform individual Americans who stand up and talk. And in forums like this, it's a great opportunity to do that. I think the other issue here, too, is that when he was, disparaging the judges, our system of courts held up. That Ninth Circuit wasn't cowed by President Trump. They unanimously upheld the opinion of that district court judge, who was a George W. Bush appointee, by the way. And I think the reason they decided they didn't want to go to the Supreme Court is they felt that they would have a similar result in the Supreme Court. So our judicial system is there, that's the point. The legislature, we're a voter, and since we're in the minority, it's a lot more difficult to be, directly effective because, again, our previous discussion, unless we can get 2 or 3, ideally, Republicans, that they have a vote. So our system, I think, is the strength is people. The strength is ultimately the courts interpreting the laws and the actions of the executive. And what's happening now across this country, individuals coming up and saying what they think, and saying it in a way, and this is what impresses me, this is not self-interest. This is not giving something. This is about our country, about the best ideals of our country, and what we want to bequeath to the next generation from that. So if you can keep doing that, we'll keep doing that. We'll try to up the volume, and that's important. And also try to simultaneously work to get other people who might not be with us now, Republican colleagues and some others, to come with us.
I think Judge Gorsuch wanted to be asked if he agrees with Donald Trump.
Well,
the court system will be responsible for the next
I think that's an interesting question. That's, by the way, that's
Can you
one of the.
repeat that, please?
But by the way, that's one of the reasons why it's helpful to sit down with the judge and ask him questions, because he's on the spot. As you know, Chris Murphy's colleague Dick Blumenthal asked him about the comment about the so-called judge, and that did more to take the wind, I think, out of the sails of that line of attack on the judiciary than anything else. When Trump's nominee basically says that they're responsible. That was. Well, he didn't play, but I got to tell you, the effect was.
To make himself look moderate, which he's not.
But I got to tell you, there was an immediate response to this disparagement of the judiciary. And I must say, my sense of the judiciary is they understand that they have a very unique role, constitutional role, and they do not want to see that role inhibited, and that is something that goes with the job. And I don't think it's Republican, it's Democrat. They see themselves as rightfully so, the interpreters and guardians of the Constitution. So I want to go to be a young lady, and then we'll get back down there. Yes,
Thank you for everything you've been doing to fight the Trump administration so far. My name is Louise Cook from Providence, and I spoke with somebody in your Washington office about an hour and a half ago and asked if you were planning to issue a statement about the Title IX guidelines around transgender students in school, the rollback. And they said no. And then also when you last went up to East Providence High School, you said you were open to bipartisan and to and now Judge Gorsuch. I'm feeling very concerned that there is not in your office looking at the impact of the administration on LGBT people. So I would like to add. For both Ben Carson and Gorsuch, the Human Rights Campaign and Land the Legal have issued very strong statements about the potential damage that they can do. And so it feels like our vote is being taken for granted, and we're not, this is really problematic. So my ask would be, I'd like reassurance that when you're looking at nominees and laws was that you were thinking about the LGBT community, and I'd like you to, as Senator Warren and Senator Schumer have done, and Representative Sweeney, I'd like you to issue a statement condemning that rollback of guidance.
No, as far as that issue, we have been very proactive with respect to proposed legislation. And not only that, we are a part of the amicus curiae brief to the United States Supreme Court now in a current case of a young student who, yes, who was, that's before the court now. He took the position supporting the Obama administration's policy, which I think makes sense. That's the policy effectively that's in place here in Rhode Island. And that's a policy that we will go out, and I will talk to my press folks.
Thank you.
But let me also say, too, is that this issue is something that we're very concerned about. We specifically, with respect to Dr. Carson, asked him, would he in any way affect the current regulation affecting the LGBTQ community? And he said, no.
Why would you take that one statement, given his huge history of disparity?
One is that, we made it very clear that we expected him to answer honestly, and he'd be held accountable, and he did. Two is that, we are looking, unfortunately, at nominees across the board who would not be our first choice by a long shot. And we're trying to go ahead and determine and continue to raise questions on issues. But to your point, this was not something that was assumed or overlooked. It was specifically raised. And had he
I'm
answered...
disappointed that you would trust him, given that long list.
Right. So you know the lies.
I just can't understand it.
I understand, but I just want to make sure that you understand that this was not done without sensitivity to, interest in, and pursuing this particular issue.
Thank you. With Gorsuch, he has expressed hostility to the gay agenda going through the courts. My marriage is federally recognized due to people going through the courts. And as more of these religious freedom quote unquote bills get issued throughout the country, people are going to need to turn to the courts for LGBTQ rights. And I would prefer that there aren't hearings on him, but if that's how it goes, I would hope you will press him on that issue.
Well, I mean, Frank, thank you. Frankly, I've already gotten two specific questions that I can ask Judge Gorsuch and that's so this meeting has already produced remarkable insight. That's I will. No, and you'll get it, and I'll get it. It might not be it'll probably be I said it's probably a very loyally type answer, because that's typically what our lawyers thought, but it's a question. Anyway, it will be something we are considering, because we have to. Because, it's interesting, we were talking before about, and one of the areas we were very active in is allowing LGBTQ soldiers to sort of openly, sailors, Marines, airmen, etc. I was part of that effort on the outskirts committee to make that the law.
Thank you.
And we did it. And trust me, it was a very tough fight, because we had a lot of opposition, and we got it done. But here is what I mentioned before, what is so gratifying. The performance of these soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines has been so incredible that they have more than vindicated our beliefs that this is the way politics is. So let me get somebody else. I just said to you.
Thank you. My name is Joe Clifford. I agree with this gentleman, I don't know, but I've never been more frightened in my life I'm more frightened.
We're all frightened.
I'm more frightened of my own government than I am of the Russians.
Yes, absolutely.
Different tact than a lot of these people. I want to address how we got here. How did we get to this point? In retrospect, the most popular president in history of this country was FDR. Because he promised change, and he delivered. He brought great change to this country. Obama came along, and to his credit, promised change and inspired millions of people. He brought out of the woodwork people who had been removed from the system because they believed it. Unfortunately, he reneged on every single campaign promise of change that he made. So now we have this
Please. Let us communicate.
Now we have this one.
Let us communicate.
And the leadership of the Democratic Party throws at the people horrible choice. Horrible choice. One who is tied to corporations at the hip, one who is tied to Wall Street, one who has no message of change. Her message was, vote for me because I'm better than him.
Now listen.
You have no message of change. You have no reform. So where are we now? We have lost the presidency. We have lost the Senate. We have lost the House of Representatives. I say we, Democrats. We have lost the governorship seats in most of the states. We have lost control of the state general assemblies throughout the country. Why? Why did that happen? I think a lot of the fault lies at the leadership of the Democratic Party. They had a winning candidate. All pre-election polls said Bernie Sanders would have won. He offered change. Hear me out. I didn't even vote for Bernie Sanders. He offered a message of change and was sabotaged by the leadership of the party, sometimes illegal. The people of Rhode Island, Democrats, went to the polls. They wanted Bernie Sanders. The leadership of the state of Rhode Island backed Hillary Clinton. We're here at this catastrophic failure, going from controlling the presidency, the Senate, the House of Representatives, the governor's seat, and almost all state legislatures to control of nothing. And the reason that occurred is because of horrible leadership at the top. Horrible leadership. I'm very frightened, as I said before, and I'm here because they put me here. The leadership of this party put me here. They abandoned me. I could take a poll. How many people in this room would like better health care? Hands. How many people in this hands? How many people in this room would like campaign finance reform? How many people would advocate for a higher minimum wage? None of these things was adopted by the DNC. Bernie Sanders, I didn't vote for Bernie Sanders, but he tried to bring change. All his ideas were voted down by the DNC. It's the leadership of the Democratic Party that got us here. Now, let me just conclude by saying, I think, Senator, that the people, all of us, we want two things. We want change, we want significant change, and we want leadership. And I suspect a lot of the people here, I may be wrong, don't think that you're fighting the fight that you need to fight.
We're going to get change because we are now in the process of selecting new leadership for the Democratic Party. That's a fact. And Keith Ellison is on supporting Keith Ellison.
After the whole debate, you said, well, what did the party learn? My answer is nothing. Go back to the Congress. Go back to the Congress and you vote vote for Nancy Pelosi as leader. Nancy Pelosi said, I don't
No, listen, you raised very fair issues, okay? Where we are, is where you described it. We don't control the House, we didn't control the House and the Senate prior to the election either. We lost the White House, which was critical. We have to develop a strategy to, first and 18, to recapture, we hope, the Congress, both the House and the Senate. That requires working here in Rhode Island, the Sheldon Whitehouse, the David Cicilline, the Jim Lansman, so they can go back and continue to fight the good fight, and they do fight the good fight every day. We also have to mobilize a lot of people, and that's where these meetings are so powerful. And your words are many times more important and influential than the, campaign commercials or anything else. And your contacts through Facebook, your contacts as you go on social media are more powerful and more moving sometimes than the traditional campaign of the 30-second spot. So we've got to get ready. We've got to get it ready right now. And to your point, too, about, okay, there has to be something there other than a name on the ballot, and that has to be what I think you've talked about, which is opportunity, which is economic growth, which is a host of issues that appeal across the board, not Republican, Democrat. They're what people want. And we've got to go ahead and find that way forward. We've done it before. Change was a big issue. I absolutely agree with you. Change was the dynamic. And unfortunately, when you look back at the election, I think Trump was much more astute in grabbing onto this notion of disruptive change versus the status quo. And you alluded to the status quo as the status quo. So we're learning our lessons. We've got to apply them, and we've got to get energized, and we've got to get engaged and involved. That's why these meetings, not just now, this is February. It's got to be next February and next March, and all the way up into the next election cycle, and we're going to get everybody out to vote. So that's
We're here.
No, I appreciate it. Let me go ahead and. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Senator Reid, I think that one of the strengths in your approach to government over the years has been your ability to work toward the middle, to compromise, to work with the other side. But at this point, I think the message that I know I'm trying to give to you, and maybe other people are as well, is that these are not normal times. When you're talking about Gorsuch and you're saying you're going to consider him and think, go through the process because they didn't give you that opportunity with Merrick Garland, what I would say is let's do it after this is all over. Let's do it once we get ourselves back in a position where we can make decisions again. What they did was very effective by blocking that judicial nomination. We need to do that again. Yeah. We need to be the ones that are goes against your nature, and I totally appreciate that, but as I said, these are not the times where we can behave the way that we normally have. What we need to do is work as hard as we can against the Trump agenda, and by appointing this judge, we would be working for the Trump agenda. They would win. This is what they wanted.
We had the chance to meet the first meeting out there.
Jane Tucker, indivisible.
Jane Tucker. Jane did not bring the children then. Biggest space we can bring children. That's why we're here. No, listen. This is a moment where we have to engage constantly, both publicly, which is the rhetoric, which is important, publicly in terms of outreach to constituents. And then, at every level, trying to bring Republican colleagues across the aisle, trying to convince them that this is a bad idea, etc. And having that ability to reach across the aisle sometimes helps a lot in getting things done. And you have to, the challenge is, you've got to do both without undercutting one another significantly. That's the challenge. The reality for Judge Garland is they control the Senate. And they took an unprecedented position of not even.
But I would say that but the Democrats have control, because without 60 votes, they can't.
Well, there is no argument there. My position is, and I said it up front, is that we have to follow the same rules that President Obama did and everyone of them. It's 60 votes. Okay? You make an evaluation on the individual, and then you go to the 60 vote procedural vote, and you take it.
Don't lose the judiciary.
How can you even consider him? And he's already dodged all the questions. His answer is, I couldn't talk about that without a case in front of me.
But wait, we've had two very thoughtful questions that were brought up here
And
today.
he's not going to answer them. He said,
And guess what?
tell you that unless
I know, but if there's a non-answer, then that's the way you form your judgment about his ability.
So what's your judgment if there's a non-answer?
Or a conservative Supreme Court judge under.
All I'm saying is, I have.
That's our only judge right now.
If Trump colluded with the Russians, he doesn't get to nominate Supreme Court justices.
And we are trying to pursue, not only trying to pursue, we are pursuing and keeping the pressure on this investigation of what happened. And so this is, and again, I don't want to go back and say, gee, if it wasn't for this, but I can tell you, if there was not that initial hearing in early January, where you had both Republicans and Democrats and the intelligence community sitting there, you know what the story would be today? Oh, that's just fake news. That's just, that there's nothing real. That,
So just tie it to the lifetime appointment.
that established that forced the continued investigation, which we're going to keep the pressure on. And it goes back also to this point too, of if we're going to get anything real out of this investigation, it's going to have to get people like Susan Collins, people like Lisa McCown, other people. And but we've got to get people like that to say, and here's the issue, is that we've all raised this. This comes down to not individuals, not parties, the Constitution and this country. And we have to appeal. And there are people, on the other side of the aisle, like John McCain and Lindsey Graham and a couple of others, and Susan Collins, etc., who has dedicated themselves to this country. They get it. Now, and I'm going to tell you, and many others. So we're going to keep working it. We're still going to
This
keep
is
working.
treason. It is treason.
Let's take a question.
Ask them about Pensions United.
I'm going
Not
to.
a corporation to people.
I'll come back to that. But
I have just a couple of very specific questions, because I think we all have the same emotional appeal.
I think you're a pretty good test of the
So
law.
this intelligence committee that you have, that you started in January, have you taken the necessary legal steps, and have they been achieved to make sure that all of the documents are retained, that no emails, texts are deleted, that we can get access to all of the Trump campaign stuff? That's my first
The
question.
Intelligence Committee sent a letter to all agencies, which has the effect, basically, of doing exactly what you said, of preventing the destruction of any records that may be put in.
Is there any litigation that should or could be brought to preserve those documents now, so there are court orders?
Everyone is on notice, and this was the chairman and the ranking member of the committee on notice that anyone who destroyed a record would be violating essentially not only the sense of Congress, but the specific instructions of the investigative committee. I also,
Is it criminal? If they-
well, here's the issue. The issue is that, as you well know, this is public knowledge. The Federal Bureau of Investigation is conducting investigations. Those investigations have criminal consequences for destruction of evidence, for everything else. So that is separate. But we were very, to your point, very clear, and I will give credit to Senator Mark Warner of Virginia, to insist that every relevant agency was on notice that there would be no destruction of deletion branch.
Second quick question. Is there anything the Senate can do about Pruitt as these emails come out and show how?
I voted against Pruitt. And the emails I'm sure, will be considered by the relevant committees. I'm sure. I mean, that's trust me.
Start playing by the rules. Why do you keep expecting them to start?
Yeah.
Part he's confirmed, but you know, part of this, and again, one thing we really we did it in a way because it was allusion to attacks on the press. One of the powerful tools that is also helping us is a free press that is very aggressive, and they should. So we have to support them, and again, I think that we can't see them demeaned, we can't see them sort of dismissed. We have to, in fact, I'm looking around here at a free press at work, which is a very strong positive.
Okay, right.
This is not helpful tremendously, and that press is not going to let those emails go by. You have a series of, you have litigation. I mean, I can trust when they try to change rules, etc., there will be environmental organizations that will quite probably get up and say, this is contrary to policy. Oh, and by the way, you have a personal interest or interest sufficiently close enough where you should not be involved. So there'll be.
And the last very short question,
Yes, ma'am.
which is on Gorsuch. I know there's the fear of the nuclear option and losing the filibuster, and I respect that. And I also agree with me. I think Gorsuch is likely to be the least that nominee.
You're saying it from a place of privilege with that.
Let's let everybody speak.
His First Amendment position is respecting the press is at least a place where he has pretty strong. But my question to you on Gorsuch is, if he cannot be blocked, is there a way that things can be dragged out long enough for not hear any cases this term? That should be an easy to do.
What is happening is that there is a typical period of time, because there has to be intensive background check. Everything he's written has to be reviewed. That procedure is being followed right now. So I do not believe we will double check that they've scheduled hearings yet. If they have scheduled hearings, then those hearings will take place. So what happens then, and this is, frankly, this is the advantage of having a majority. You can control hearing. You can control timing. You can control a lot of things. And so my sense is what they've done is they have adopted a schedule very close to the same schedule in terms of days between nomination and hearing and voting that was consistent with previous nominees on the President Obama. Maybe they were a week off, a week on. They haven't accelerated those hearings. But the timing when he gets onto the court, at this point, I can't do any projection on it.
And there's nothing the public can do to stall that.
The only, the ability we would have would be when there would be a motion for cloture, a 60-vote motion, If we succeed on that, then everything stops. If we don't succeed, then it's 3 hours and then it's a vote. So conceivably, yes, we can. I think what we've done, by the way, and this has been because it's important, we have exercised our rights, as we should in the minority, to take our time appropriately with all these nominees. And that's why we've got colleagues on the floor at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. That's why we're talking for hours and 2 hours. And we're doing that. One reason is because many of these nominees were not properly vetted. They're discovering. So we're doing that, and that's our job, and we're doing that. So we are trying to, again, this is not just delay for sake of delay. This is delay for 2 significant reasons. One, we've got to ensure that everything that the American public should know about the nominee is out there. And then 2, it gives us time to build up, to the previous points made, opposition from our colleagues on the other side. That's what led to the Secretary of Labor's withdrawal. If that had been rushed through in 10 or 15 minutes, it would have been discovered after the fact. So we're doing that, and we'll keep doing that. Let me go to this side first. Let me get to the veterans. But yes, behave.
I'm Darrell Moore, and as you said, I'm a veteran. I'm also an immigrant. I came to this country in 1977 under political asylum. I was white, being in a country that was black, that the CIA was in creating havoc. I saw a revolution. I saw people die. I saw what happens when people get upset. I'm seeing a similar passion right now here in America. America means everything to me. I joined the military, I was a veteran, I became a citizen, and I continue to work for the Department of Defense. I'm not a paid activist. I am very I took my annual leave to be here this afternoon as I take annual leave. I have many friends in the LGBT communities. They are scared. I am scared for them. They're very close friends. My partner works in a school district, in an alternative school. She has 3 students that are transgender. They are scared. They cry every single day. They are scared. This is not the country we want to be living in. Nobody in America should be scared living here. Immigration is a hugely important issue to me because I got the freedom of coming to America to live. I have scars from being in a revolution. I was attacked. Why? Because I was assumed since I was white, I was American. So I'm carrying those scars. They're not the scars, physical scars, I've got them in my heart. And yet, America took me in. And I continue to work for this country, and I will continue to stand here and fight for this country. Nothing is going to take me down until we have our freedom.
Thank you.
My concerns, the Russian interference with the election, that we need to get to the bottom of that. We cannot have Sessions take part in... Trump administration needs to be vetted. Well, not just vetted, completely investigated, because I do believe, in the bottom of my heart, there is treason. Yeah. We've got a president who has said, let's make friends with Russia. Russia is right now making attacks towards Finland, Poland, Germany, Estonia, you name it. You name it. The threats are there. Those are countries that we've had as allies for years. we're going to turn our back on our allies and say, screw you? No, we cannot do that. We are not getting rid of NATO. We are not getting rid of the United Nations.
I completely agree. And, there is an old stock saying we're a nation of immigrants. We are. You go back far enough, and you came from someplace else. We all do.
Unless you're intermarried.
But some people forget that, and they shouldn't. And we have to ensure that we have a place where opportunities available to people, that people are treated respectfully, and not disrespectfully, and particularly not disrespectfully because of where they might have come from. And that's what we want to get to. That's a more productive and better country. The other issue that you raised is Russia, and you're absolutely right. We are going to, on the Armed Services Committee, focus significant hearings. I talked to the chairman, and he's at this point very much in agreement on the Russian national security threat, and it ranges from the traditional threats of conventional weapon systems all the way down to disinformation, voter manipulation in terms of places like, and you mentioned some countries in Europe. I've been in the Ukraine. I've visited our forces that are training Ukrainian troops. I've been in Kiev talking to them, and Russian penetration of their telecommunication system, their electric system, all these things are real. So we're going to keep the pressure on. And I do think that also helps in terms of keeping the attention on their involvement in our election in 2016. Because a lot of what they do, you know this, a lot of what they've done in the Ukraine and elsewhere looks oddly similar to what seems to have happened in 2016. So we're going to be there, and we're going to do it. And that's part of this ongoing day in, day out. We might get a headline, but we'll get the work done.
Okay. I've got a couple more quick things. EPA, we need to keep right now there's a bill to get rid of the EPA in the House. We cannot get rid of the EPA. We need our help. Right now, corporations pay 11% of all taxes. We pay 89% of the taxes, but Congress listens to corporations over the citizens. That has to stop. That's why we are here.
Thank you.
One more, okay? I think we'll be at the next meeting together too. Are you all set? Let me respond.
The last thing I had was Senator Russell, hate crimes. We've got other senators and other congressmen with hate crimes and entering them. I would like to see you and Senator Whitehouse put in a hate crime bill against any congressman entering hate crime bills.
Okay. No, fair. But just in terms of eBay, it's absolutely essential. I had a meeting about 2 weeks ago with all the environmental groups, the state EM. In fact, Chris Bowling, our former EPA regional director, came down. The devastation that would be caused by unwinding some of these rules would be horrific. We can't do that. And I'm just, this is one of those, I'm old enough to remember, I used to play in the Kentucky River. And we would literally wonder what those big puffs of white fluffers were. I'll let you figure out what it was. That was 1950, 1960, etc. So that's it. We're past our time. But what I want to do is, can we just give a quick question? We've had a chance to have some long discussions, but quick question. I'll try to take as many as I can. Yes, ma'am.
This is a quickie. Susan Allen from Providence. So you just said that we're a nation of immigrants. Yes, except for the Native Americans.
No.
And I would like to know what you are going to do to defend the Standing Rock. Yes.
First of all, the Dakota pipeline deal, I think, is not a good deal for not only the Sioux tribe. thereby, but also for the overall economy of the United States. I think it'll benefit large producers of
The
petroleum,
11%.
et cetera, but it won't help us that much. What the president done is rescinded the environmental investigation that was ordered by President Obama. We're going to do our best. We're trying to find the mechanism now to see if we can reinstitute the environmental investigation.
Require the Corps of Engineers to follow through on their own.
Their EIS, their own regulations. See, the Corps gave an easement to this company to go underneath the river or lake, and usually, typically, they're requiring EIS. My guess is the first response is going to be in court because the tribe and other friends will go into court saying they're violating the National Environmental Protection. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, quick question.
Thank you.
Champion of Providence. What I've heard underlying some of what you said, and I think what we all recognize is that Mr. Trump has become totally delegitimize the president. And I'm very puzzled as to, in that case, why is the system continuing to work in his favor? If he is a completely illegitimate head of the process, why does the process continue to be as it always was?
I can tell you, because, you know, the first major checkpoint, literally, when that sort of phenomenon can be checked, is an election. Because that's what we do here in this country. We have an election. And that's why 2018 is going to be a very important election.
It's too late.
It's my view is, you got to keep working. You got to put your head down. But 2018 is going to be, if that is a stunning reversal of fortune for Republicans, that will not be lost on them. It might be lost on Trump, it will not be lost on them.
How many people will die before that?
Well, you know, we are trying right now, and this is again where we're doing the emoluments on several pieces of legislation. That's in the courts right now. There's suits right now. But again, that, you know, we have a role to play, but I can't overemphasize the role of the courts. And we're not just talking about the Supreme Court. We're talking about going into, like they did with the Muslim ban. A single judge in Washington State told the President of the United States, no way. Got to appeal, because that's our system. 3 judges in the West Coast, San Francisco said, no way. And guess what? It's stopped, at least temporarily. So I don't, that if you want a short, you know, if you want the most immediate response, it's going to come, I think, from appropriate judicial action. Let me take questions. One about, and then come over here. Yes, sir.
No, I'd be ashamed for you to go before.
Oh, in that case. Thank you. You're a gentleman. Thank you.
You just handled unparalleled and quite frightening surveillance apparatus to an administration who doesn't seem to really respect many of our constitutional values. And also some of those capacities and capabilities are being handed down also to law enforcement, in the form of stingrays and other cell site simulators that can suck up all our data. And I'm wondering what you and other members of Congress are going to do to protect private citizens, activists, especially since so many of us are quite riled up, and also members of marginalized communities from being caught up in dragnet and having our rights violated. Rounding up. I'm hearing that yesterday. You're rounding people up. I feel like we're in Nazi Germany. We're so terrified.
We're gonna be.
We have to, you know, look at the whole range of these authorities, some of which were frankly improvised after 9/11 and extended, and indeed extended by the Obama administration as well as the Bush administration. And we have to look back and see if those things have gone much too far to the American people. And then the next step is have, and there are legislative proposals, have legislative proposals, and then try to get that legislation making the law respect his rights.
What about also police relative? I think
Um,
as people are.
No, I understand, yeah, no, I think frankly, that was a, consequence of donating lots of tactical military equipment and tactical techniques, etc. With a real sort of, and I think most law enforcement professionals will tell you this, the real heart of good policing is community policing, knowing who lives there, knowing what's going on, being trusted and respected, and that's the best kind of policing. So, in terms of refocusing our efforts, you're right. Rather than spending, in my view, a lot of money on sophisticated equipment and sophisticated this, can you invest it in community policing? I'm going to say, I was in the House, and you probably, some people might remember this. The punchline for the Republicans in the 1990s about cutting social spending was midnight basketball. Remember that?
Was what?
Midnight basketball. There were a whole, we were funding a small program that was encouraging police departments and social service agencies to organize basketball tournaments. Rather than being a punchline, that was probably one of the most effective anti-crime programs we had. Because guess what? Instead of being on the stoop with nothing to do, you were doing what you wanted to do. And we could do that in a number of ways. I must say, and again, when we talk about these programs, one of the issues I have to put on the table here is, we're looking at a major budget fight coming up. The president's budget's coming up mid-March. Their efforts will be to undercut a lot of these programs, some for ideological reasons, some for reasons just to jettison spending so they can spend it elsewhere, etc. One of our biggest fights, and where we're going to draw the line of fight is going to be on that fight. Let me get
Excuse me, Senator,
I'm going to say two more, but please, I'll be quick too.
Yeah, first of all, I want to meet with many of your Republican colleagues who are being sort of selective about which constituencies we listen to. Thank you for coming up with us. People kind of skirting around the issue of corporate finance and politics, and I think that Trump is just a symptom of that stranglehold on our government. What specific legislation are you or are the Congress members working on to change that?
First of all, Citizens United was a case, I will shake my head along with it. The case decided on the First Amendment. So there's a constitutional principle now, which I don't agree with. I'm not a scholar of the Constitution, but I don't believe the word corporation is anywhere in the Constitution. I'm not a scholar, don't quote me on that. But anyway, I think the first mention was sometime in the 1800s. Long story short, we put in legislation that after Citizens United would have full disclosure. So these super PACs would have everyone engaged, and particularly corporations, because they would not, public relations issue, they may not want to be seen as good. Okay? When we lost the majority, and this is in 2009, when the special election in Massachusetts, we lost the 60 votes, that legislation didn't succeed. The idea of getting that legislation forward, we're going to keep pushing it. Again, when you're in the minority, and you need 60 votes, legislation, you get over the top of the I'm going to be brief because I do want to take folks to go running out.
Gotta take a rolling look from where you from.
Hey, listen, I'm sure. I see you. You are behind the other tall person.
I'm Nancy Quintana. I live right around the corner from your restaurant.
Oh, great.
I've been Muslim for like 30 years, as an American for 54, 3 generations, and over the, I'm going to tell you something. Over the, I've heard a lot of ideological conversations around Muslims and what they feel and what they think, and quite frankly, the people who really don't know what they're talking about, okay? So, I think it's, turnabout is fair play. I'm going to look at this administration from an ideological point of view, okay? I know Flynn is gone, it was because of my prayers, by the way.
Thank you.
Flynn is gone, but he was the first two people on his team along with Bannon. It's public knowledge, all over the internet, that Flynn has said there's cancer in 1.7 billion people, and that cancer is gone, and it needs to be excised, cut out. That's not about terrorists, that's about me, that's about my family, and then Bannon comes along, and quite frankly, Flynn's a wonderful guy. So, I've heard the word jihad, bandied around for the last 30 years. But quite frankly, it does not feel like what you're saying. It is feeling that way to us, and I'm just being honest. So, what do you do to protect, American Muslims?
Well, here's first of all, I think you have to recognize that we have a vibrant Muslim community in the United States that has contributed immensely as Americans. They're Americans. In fact, they have provided incredible assistance to our law enforcement authorities when it comes to behavior that they think is suspicious. Exactly. And so they have become, in many respects, a source of critical information, and rather than being detrimental, have been an asset in terms of this concept that's being raised. The one thing that I think you're alluding to is that, generalizing any community as one thing is not only oversimplification, it gets you into trouble. I mean, some of the wisest people I've known, I had a chance to sit down with King Abdullah of Jordan, who can describe in detail the differences between the Shia community, the Sunni community, subsets of those communities, some communities that are completely, have the same sort of approach towards peace that we like to aspire to ourselves in our community, etc. The issue is making a stereotypical assumption, and particularly a derogatory one, is not only wrong, it leads to international problems.
Should I ask you something? I've never heard this, but I'm sure this is the case, but maybe in your conversations with people that we talk to stop using the word moderate Muslim, because when you use the word moderate Muslim, that's making that person seem like they're minority, and the average Muslim is an extreme right. So,
Let me get this question, and then I do have to, I'm going to stick around for a minute, but I want to let people kind of drift out and get themselves a Dunkin' Donuts coffee. I have no interest in the company, but I'm sure I have.
And here,
I don't know that the diversity funded citizens.
Yeah.
give them your mic.
But a couple of quick questions, I'll try to speak up. Are you in favor of a step up in the upper levels of the graduated income tax?
I believe this should be much more progressive income tax.
How about considering a Social Security tax major reduction in the rate, eliminate the tax, all income earned and gross from any source?
I think that, first of all, I think we have to consider going forward, and this is not going to take place immediately, because we have people who are in their 40s and 50s. I know, I think it's important to note that one of the problems with reforming earned benefits, there are a lot of people close to earning them, so we have to reassure them that they're benefits. I get that, but I want to go on record.
Why did you find more money for the government to make things work?
I-
That's who elected the president, people who supplied.
I know, and so what we have, I think the only way we can do this is to go ahead and get a commission, as we did in the 80s. Bob Dole was involved, and Greenspan, put it on the table, and then have it come to us where we have an up or down vote, and we were on the hook eventually.
How about trying to eliminate all the effective
working tax structure for hedge fund managers at less trading?
I honestly, because of the complexity of that, I would have to look at that, to be honest.
Finally, not all corporations lose their legal motives out of their relationship.
I will tell you, yes, I'm sentimentally for that. I will tell you also, too, that I have got included in a bill, I have in the House of Representatives, a provision that would have denied reentry of individuals who changed their citizenship to avoid taxes. It's on the books now, it's never been enforced. So I am not sympathetic to companies that benefit the United States and overseas. I think we're close the same way. That lady, the last question.
I have a really quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you issue a statement in support of trans students who want to just use the bathroom that makes
Yeah,
no
no,
sense to
we-
them?
I think
Will
based
you,
upon-
will you issue a statement?
Yeah, based upon the advice I got here today, yeah. We're doing this again, because I learned a lot. And two, I'm going to stick to as long as I can, if there are people that want to come up and chat in public. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We got the route, we'll pick up those comments, we want the comment. We will see you, I hope, Saturday at our healthcare rally. So, bravo.